Hello, kaiju lovers. Nathan Marchand here with another entry in the MIFV interview series. If you want to, hear me talk with my friend Elijah Thomas, and in the first one, and I'm trying to remember his name here really quick because I'm a terrible person. But the good doctor who brought us those Godzilla novelization translations, Jeffrey Engels, Dr. Jeffrey Engels, go listen to those or watch them if you want. But tonight is a very special one. Tonight, I have arguably my first celebrity interview for this series. Joining me tonight is a leading lady who got to act alongside Akira Takarada, work with Ashiro Honda at Rhodes Reason, and most importantly, the eighth wonder himself, Linda Jo Miller.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing tonight, Linda?
I'm doing great. How about you?
It's been a little bit of a frazzled week,
Yes.
keeping busy.
Yeah.
I do a lot of freelance work, when I'm not doing podcasts or talking to wonderful people like you. So but I keep myself busy, and yeah. So where are you coming to us from tonight?
I live in near Richmond, Virginia, and outskirts of Richmond, or suburb, I should say, of Richmond.
A suburb of Richmond?
Yeah. So, and I've lived here since, I've been in Virginia since 95.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been here a long time.
Yeah. You were actually just in Kaiju Brooklyn a few weeks ago.
Yes. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. Some conventions you like better than others, but this one I really liked. I mean, across the board, everything was great.
And you were interviewed by my friend Kim.
Oh, Kaiju Kim?
Yes, Kaiju Kim. She and I go way back. I've had her on my podcast several times.
She is a lovely person. I immediately, when I met her, I liked her. And then once we started doing, the panel together, she's good people. I like her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. She's absolutely wonderful. I love collaborating with her.
Oh,
and
that's great. That's
great. Yeah. If you really want to see some entertaining stuff, go check out. She took out some of the highlights of it, but she used to do a charity live stream for Christmas. She would raise money for Toys for Tots, and she would bring a bunch of these crazy boys that we always joke that she's like the mom in our little group. She doesn't have kids because she has us. She has to keep us all in line. So, we get into all kinds of shenanigans in her live streams.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while. Speaking of conventions, I've actually had the privilege of meeting you a couple of times at some conventions. The first time was at All Monsters Attack. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, that was in Indianapolis?
Yes, I was trying to remember if it was the first one or the second one. The first one was in Indianapolis. It started in my home state, which was very exciting. And then I got to see you again at G-Fest a few years ago.
I thought you looked familiar,
Yes.
Because I see so many faces, and sometimes I see the same faces at different conventions, So I thought you looked familiar.
Well, I'll show you. There's something that'll help jog your memory here in a moment. But I actually just remembered our first ever interaction was back in 2019, believe it or not, because I was preparing to do a podcast episode on King Kong Escapes, which is, the movie that you most famously were in. And I was asking people, like, hey, do you know where I can find some, I was trying to do research on the movie and all that. And they're like, hi, I'm Linda. I was in the movie.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, wait, what? I'm in the same Facebook group as Linda Jo Miller.
Oh,
what?
I remember that. Yes. I remember that.
I started flipping out, and then I can't remember. We're Facebook friends now, but I don't remember if it was you or me who sent the request. I might have friend requested you. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm Facebook friends with Linda Jo Miller. I was, freaking out a little bit, but I don't know if you remember this. This is how we kind of bonded.
Yes, I do.
Yes. So this was a magazine I used to work with. It is now unfortunately defunct, Kaiju
It's too
Ramen.
bad.
And yeah, it was a really good magazine while it lasted. An issue commemorating the 90th, I should say, anniversary of King Kong. And I wrote a piece in here that was called Kong's Queens.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about all of the actresses, the
Yeah.
leading ladies who were in King Kong movies. You know, obviously we started with Ann Darrow, you know, the icon, but I went through all of
it all.
Yep, but I went through all of them and I showed you the little excerpt about you, and you actually got 2 pictures in here.
Well, thank you.
So you got this one, and
Which
then
is funny.
Yeah, and then we have this one, and you loved my write-up so much because I found a book of essays on the original King Kong when I was doing research for that movie. And this guy in this essay was just mean to everybody. Who wasn't in that first movie, and he was particularly vitriolic about you because he basically said like, "Oh, she just infantilizes Kong. She's this controlling, cajoling girlfriend of blah blah blah." And I'm like, "What is wrong with you?" And I took this guy to task in my article, and you loved this so much you gave me a free signature.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
And
yeah,
I sent you a copy too.
Yes, you did. I have it. I read that article and I went, oh man, meanie, real mean person.
Yeah. I was just like, dude, what is wrong with you? But we'll get into that because your character in King Kong Escapes is actually seminal in we'll say the saga of Kong, as you were the first of his ladies who actually was sympathetic toward him.
Oh, yeah, I was. And I was very sympathetic towards him. You know, I mean, it was in the script, but
it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You were the first. Like I said, we'll get into it. But one of the things I've been telling you that I really wanted to do, because I've seen or heard several interviews with you. You've been on, you were interviewed by Kaiju Kim. You've been on Monsters with Attitude. You've been to a lot of places. You've been interviewed by Kaiju United. You've been all these places.
Yeah.
But most of the time they focus on your rather short career as an actress. And I understand that. That's big reason, that we want to talk to you, because you worked with people that we really admire, and you got to hang out with, you were, making a King Kong movie, that's exciting. But I'm just like, there's so much life before and after that moment for you. And I wanted to not only learn a bit myself, but give my audience a chance to learn a little bit more about you. Because you've lived a very full life, and there's a lot of questions I would really love to know. Kim actually touched on some of them, and I was like, oh, I really, really want to hear more here. But we do have someone in the chat I want to acknowledge here really quick. Okay. Yeah, so we have the awesome Shark Guy. He says, hi there. How are you today? Well, I'm doing great. How about you?
Awesome Shark Guy. Hello there, awesome Shark Guy.
I mean, this month is the 50th anniversary of Jaws.
So. That's right. It is. Yes, I remember seeing that. Aren't they releasing it, or I saw a TV commercial. They're streaming it.
It's going to be shown on NBC.
What night?
I think this weekend, I want to say. And there's a new 50th anniversary documentary, and there's a new 4K release for it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it got a re-release. I have actually seen Jaws in a movie theater.
Yes, me too.
I'm very proud of that. Oh, well, you saw it way when it first came out.
I saw it when it first
I saw it. Quick fun story. I actually saw it during 2020. There was a local theater here. Unfortunately, it did not survive COVID, but it was an interesting little theater where it was like half restaurant, half movie theater. So you could come in, and instead of doing a concession stand, you would sit you would sit at a little table or at a bar,
Uh-huh.
and then these waitresses would come over, bring you a menu, and you would give them your order. They would go make you food, and then they would bring it back to you while you're watching the movie. So I
Yeah.
got to, it was called Cinema Grill. That's what it was. So I got to see that, see Jaws, because nobody was releasing new movies. So they're just showing the classics to get people to show up. So
Yeah.
I got
That
to
was
see
a great
Jaws that
movie.
way.
That was a
Oh,
great
it's
movie.
absolutely fantastic. One of the greatest movies ever made. We got some more people in the chat. Jake Hambrick. He's one of my friends and co-hosts on another podcast. He's also one of my patrons on Patreon.
Hi, Jake.
Says hello there. And then another one of my patrons, Edwin Gonzalez, says, saw it for a film class getting my bachelor's degree. Only saw the original. Sounds like a draft house. He's talking about the theater where I saw it. It wasn't nearly as fancy as I'm guessing you're thinking of an Alamo draft house. It wasn't nearly that fancy. Not nearly that fancy. But you've actually had the privilege of working in the film industry, and it's just something. Hopefully, we'll get to that. I threw a lot of questions. I sent you a lot of questions.
Yeah, you did, but they're good questions, I have to tell you.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to work as a journalist, so I got very good at
there you go.
Interview questions. Got to get all the who, where, why, what, and how.
Yes. Yeah.
So one of the first things I want to do, I want to kind of go in order here. So I want to know a little bit about what life was like before you were in Japan. So because we all know that when we'll get into it, you were living in Japan at the time, how you got the role.
Yeah.
But where were you born? Where are you from originally?
I am from Northwest Pennsylvania. My parents are from a little town called Cambridge Springs, which is near Erie, between Erie and Pittsburgh, in that area. And my dad, when he got out of the Air Force, I guess it was called the Air Force, got out of the military after the war, and he bought a bar. And so up until I was about 4 years old, that's what my dad did. He owned a bar. And then he decided, well, I think my mother pushed him to rejoin the military, because I think he was sampling too much of his beverages that he had there. And so my dad re-enlisted. And then that began the journey of being a military brat. I think the first place I lived in was Illinois, and then Georgia. And then I've lived like in so many different places. And I went to 11 years of school because I skipped a grade. And
you're that smart, huh?
No, well, it's funny. I was one of the last places I lived in was Michigan, Battle Creek, Michigan.
Oh, that's not far from me.
Yeah, it's very close. And their curriculum was a little bit more intense than when from 10th grade. Was it 10th grade or 9th grade? No, in 9th grade, I was in Battle Creek, Michigan. We moved to Moore, Oklahoma. And so the curriculum was a little bit not as advanced. So I was ahead. And so I was able to go to summer school between my 10th and 11th grade.
Okay.
And by doing that, I skipped 11th grade and I went straight to becoming a senior.
Wow.
And I did that because I knew that my father it was time for him to have an overseas duty. And I didn't want to, leave and then spend 1 year in a new place and graduate. I mean, that wouldn't be very much fun. So I wanted to graduate and then start, my adult life, after that. So it was time for my dad to go overseas, and he requested Spain because I was interested in becoming a Spanish interpreter. And so, go to the University of Madrid. I mean, I had it all planned out in my head. So as the military always does, they sent him to Japan instead of Spain.
I was going to say, do you know Spanish?
I knew a whole lot more than I know now. High school Spanish, and I had a Spanish teacher who was married to a fellow from Colombia or Guatemala, somewhere like that. So every Friday night after school, I would go home with her The three of us would have dinner, and we would only speak Spanish. And then my dad would come and pick me up. But that was so long ago. And, if you don't use a language, you definitely lose it. You remember some of the words, and then some of the words go, gee, I know that word, but what does it mean?
Yeah.
So, so I was supposed to have been an interpreter. In my mind, I thought, oh, I'll be an interpreter at the UN,
Yeah.
So Daddy gets sent to Japan instead. And that's how I wound up in Japan.
Okay.
In high school, I was very active. I was on the track team. I played baseball, played basketball. I was a cheerleader. I mean, I was very, very active in school.
So how old were you when you moved to Japan, when your family moved to Japan?
I was 16 or 17. I think I must have been maybe 17.
So you had finished high school?
Yeah, because I graduated early. And I missed my graduation because Mom and I had to be in San Francisco on the plane on the day I was supposed to have my graduation ceremony. So I missed my ceremony. Aww. But I graduated.
That's the important thing, right?
Yeah. Looking backwards, that's the important thing.
Yeah. So you're 17, you get to go over that. That, for a lot of people, myself included, going to Japan is the dream, No,
it was not a dream for me. I was very angry and upset about it. And if there was any way I could have gone to Spain by myself, I would have. But I'm an only child, so my parents were very protective, and they were not about to let their 17-year-old daughter go off to Europe all by herself. So they squashed that idea real fast. So, yeah.
Have you been able to go to Europe and Spain since then?
Well, I was in Spain when I was in second, third, and fourth grade. Because he was stationed in France, but I never made it to Spain. And that was before I had the dream of being an interpreter. So when we lived in France, I never made it to Paris, but I went to Luxembourg and a couple places in Germany. My mom went to Holland and a couple other places that I didn't go. So we saw a good deal of, well, not a good deal, but we saw, a nice amount of Europe when we were there. And I remember, it's so funny, the French food was delicious, but I remember when you would cross from France into Germany, oh, I hope I don't offend anybody, but you could see, it was almost like a line in the road that France was a lot dirtier and Germany was like super uber clean. You know what I'm saying? And I just remember that as a kid seeing like, wow, Germany's really clean. The streets were clean, and it wasn't that way when we lived in France.
Yeah, you would have that would have been the late 50s, early 60s.
It was early to mid 50s.
Okay, yeah. I'm just thinking it's like that would have been West Germany. Then
no, wait a minute,
because that was at the height of the Cold.
Wait a minute. When did the Berlin Wall go up? Was that in the 60s? No, that.
Ooh, now I have to look that up because I'm pretty sure the Berlin Wall was pretty early.
I don't recall. I don't recall, to be honest with you. I know we went to Berchtesgaden, and then we went to Garmisch.
Oh, I was wrong. You were there before the Berlin Wall.
Okay.
Because it says the Berlin Wall it said it encircled West Berlin from 1961 to 1989.
Yeah.
So you were there before it, but
I was there.
I think the country had been split at that point.
I don't know. But
yeah, the city and the country had been split up by that point, but the wall didn't go up until 61. So you were there beforehand.
Yeah. I was there before a lot of things, especially all you listeners. I was there before a lot of you listeners were even born.
Well, that's why I said that you're like the Godzilla, the kaiju fandom's favorite grandma now.
Yeah.
It's how we when we see you in the in the movie. That's your maiden phase. And then, you know, we didn't see you when you did the quote unquote mother phase. And now you're the matriarch phase. And that's when we get to hang out with you.
told my manager who manages Kylie Hoddle for the conventions. And she is the deaf girl. And okay. So I said to him, I said, you know, you ought to get me a part as her grandmother.
Yes.
You know? I think that would be really cool.
I would, you know what? I would love to see you do something like that. I would love to see you. I don't know how you would make it happen unless I was to do like, I don't know, some sort of like fan produced audio drama or something like that. Cause that's what I do. I would love to see you actually get a chance to play Susan again and not get dubbed over, but you know, we'll talk about that.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that. But I have like all kinds of funny ideas in my head. I like to think that, you know, Susan had a nice long career after that as a nurse. And
yes, and
now she's, you know,
admiral or something like that.
Yeah, an admiral, and now she's happy and retired, and you know,
yes.
you know, it's sitting on a nice pension. Pension.
Oh, I wish.
So
I wish.
Yeah, right. But so you know, you knocked out a bunch of my questions already. Nice job. So where did you live in Japan?
We lived in Tokyo. It was a housing area right, you know, one of the little suburbs of Tokyo called Grant Heights.
Oh, okay.
And, my dad worked at Fuchu Air Force Base and Tachikawa Air Force Base, and that's all in the Tokyo area. And then they had different housing, you know, compounds, and ours was Grant Heights, which was, have you ever heard of Ikebukuro in Japan? Anyway.
Sounds familiar, yes.
Okay, we were probably by train, we were like about 10, 15 minutes by train to Ikebukuro.
Okay.
For those who know where that is.
Well, I've done a fair amount of research about a lot of aspects. It's one of the trademarks of my show. It's very researched, so I'm actually learning about the context in which the movies I talk about were made.
Yes.
I can send you a link to the episode I did on King Kong Escapes if you would like to hear. I haven't done the green slime yet, but
okay, I would love that if you wouldn't mind.
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you. We had a lot. My guest on that one was my friend Nick, and he had never seen the movie before, and we had a bunch of fun. You know, I think my favorite thing is Nick made this joke about how Susan could have used Kong to go take over a small country out someplace. It's just like, Kong, go here, and then they go over and they take over.
And he would have done it for me, you know.
Yeah, he would have done it for me. You know, because he's got a thing for blondes, you know.
That's for sure.
Yeah, except for King Kong versus Godzilla, where he's like, "Oh, it's Miyahama. I can forget about blondes for a second."
Oh, I didn't see that one. But
the previous Toho movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I know she was in my movie as well.
Yes, Madame Piranha. Depends on which one you look at. It's either Madame X or Madame Piranha. It depends on which one you watch.
I think Madame Piranha. And Doctor Who, Madame X. I don't know. Now you've got.
Yeah, it depends on if it's the dub or the subtitled version.
Yeah, I'd have to
I think it's Madame Piranha in the dub.
Yeah, I'd have to get my script out and take a look and see.
Oh, you still have the script?
Oh yeah. I've got the final script, and then I've got, I don't know what they call it, like the first script that they gave me that's on like white paper, and then the final script has a it's yellow cover. Yeah, and I've got notes in it, and I was thinking of making copies of my script to take to conventions to sell, because it has my notes and little, things I added here and there.
Miss Miller, please. I will shut up and take my money. I will. I would love to look at that script. I'm a writer myself, and one of the other things that distinguishes my show from a lot of others is I always call attention to the screenwriters, in particular the ones who worked at. There were two big ones who worked at Toho on their tokusatsu films back then. And one of them, his name was Takeshi Kimura, or Kaoru Mabuchi. He went by two different names. And he worked on the script for that movie, for King Kong.
You know what? I'd have to look at my two scripts and check the names out. Because back then I was oblivious to everything.
Yeah. There's a second screenwriter credited in that one, but I think it's because he translated and kind of like tweaked some things around for the English speaking cast members.
Arthur gave himself credit in
him too. Yeah. Because of course he did, but yeah.
Of course he did.
Yes, of course he did. But anyway, my next question
is,
so you moved to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do for a living before you got into show business?
Okay, let me start at, I get to Japan. You're kind of, kicking and screaming the whole way. Listen to this. We land at one of the military bases and we're on the runway, and I got this sense of coming home. That was the feeling I got. And I went, whoa. And I immediately fell in love with Japan. As much resistance as I had to going to it, once I got there, it's like I fully embraced it, So anyway, we get there, and the day I landed, my dad said to me, because I missed my graduation, my dad said, "Do you remember the little girl who used to live next door to us in France?" I said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, they're here, and she's having a graduation party tonight." So I went to the graduation party. I mean, talk about fate and, karma or whatever, And so I go to the graduation party, and there is I'm short. I'm 5'1.5" if I stand up real tall. And so
hey, we got no hate for short girls around here. Short girls are pretty too. Yeah.
So I get to the party, and there's this other girl there who's bragging about all the money she makes modeling. She says, "Oh yes, I get to buy all my clothes. I get to go on vacation." She's going on and on. And she said I did it by modeling. And I looked at her. She was short too. And I thought, if she can do it, hell, I can do it too. So I got all the information from her. Like, she went to a charm school. And so I got the information, and my parents gave me the money, and I went to this charm school, which taught you how to put makeup on, how to, I guess, walk. I mean, just all modeling kind of stuff. And I'd never finished the course because I started working immediately. Like, probably within 2 weeks, I got a job. And then I never finished the course, which was okay because I was working and making money.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember, I think it was at G-Fest, you talked about this. You were working as a model, which will tie into how you got got to be an actress.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Hold your horses, kaiju lovers. But what struck me is you told me that you could have only worked as a model in Japan.
Because of my height.
Because of your height. I'm like, you are kidding me.
Yeah, because of my height. Now, there's different classifications of model. There's a fashion model, which, forget that. Even at my height, I was not a fashion model. And then there's people that do products, and so because I had two things going for me: my height, so I wasn't towering over all the Japanese, other talent, and my look. I did not look. I wasn't blonde, blue eye surfer girl look. So I had brown eye. I have brown eyes. My hair was kind of a light brown. So I didn't look so different that I shocked people. So I kind of bridged that gap between being a gaijin, being a foreigner, being Japanese. And I think that's what helped me be so successful at doing that, is, which had nothing to do with talent or anything I did. It just,
Yeah. I mean, I've got a little picture here of you from back then. I mean, look at that.
God.
I was like, look at that. Come on.
How sweet that little girl is. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that. Look at that's like wholesome girl next door right there.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Like, I'm surprised that, like, I honestly thought this was, for depending on what it is, I would have thought that you would have agency was just eat this up right here.
Well,
especially if it was like you were young, you were 17 to 18, you could have been in.
I was 19 then.
Oh, it's 19. Okay, here, but I'm just like you would be perfect for, like, I don't know if they had like magazines for teenage girls or whatever back then, but like this is like perfect for that sort of a thing.
Well, that's actually how Arthur found me. Is I had a contract for the cover of a weekly young girls magazine. And that's how Arthur found me. And so I did toothpaste ads. I did for acne ads.
I was gonna say, yeah, you got a nice clear face, you got nice teeth. I mean,
I did for accordion magazine. I don't know why that was. And I just did a lot of product stuff. I did a commercial for Canon camera. And so I worked all the time. I didn't work every single day, but I probably on average worked 4 days out of 7.
Okay. Yep. By the way, speaking of Kim, she dropped by in the chat really quick here. Can't stay long. Just wanted to pop in and say hi.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Just like, come on. That's like, when you told me that, it just boggled my mind because I'm like, I've seen the movie. She's pretty enough to be a model. Why, America? Why? Is it just? And I'm guessing it's just because Americans are, on average, taller than Japanese people.
Well, you have to understand, I was a big fish in a small pond in Japan. I come back to the States. I'm this little minnow compared to all the other, talent they had to pick from. So, yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, it's just so wholesome. I love the wholesome energy in there.
Well, I'm an only child, so my parents, even though I got in enough trouble, my parents kept an eye on me all the time.
Yeah, fact, well, yeah, I can understand that.
When I made the movie, my mom was on set every day.
Oh, yeah.
We came to work together and we lived together.
Yeah. Was she around, during that funny story you told Kim about seeing Toshiro Mifune?
No, she was around.
No wonder.
She wasn't with me. Oh, he was so handsome. Oh my God, he was handsome. And at 19, I was like in awe, and I knew who he was because of, his movies. And his billboards were up on the, all over town and on the trains and the subways, his little advertisement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I could be wrong about this, he's best known for being in Kurosawa films. Kurosawa was actually one of Honda-san's best friends, actually.
Really?
Yes. They had known each other for decades.
Yeah.
Decades. And they always, were helping each other with their movies and things like that. In fact, after Honda directed his final movie in 1975, which was Terror of Mechagodzilla, he became basically, his job after that is he was assistant director to Kurosawa and worked with Kurosawa all the way up to Honda's death in the early 90s. And Kurosawa actually gave the eulogy at his funeral.
Oh, well, Kurosawa was definitely legendary in Japan and I guess around the world as well. So
yeah, but I was gonna say, I think Mifune's only tokusatsu credit that I know of was a movie in the late 50s called The Three Treasures.
He had one of those. I'm shocked.
Yeah, but it was like the Japanese. It was basically the Japanese equivalent of like the Ten Commandments. It was a religious epic. It's 3 hours long, and
my God,
and it's delving really deep into Japanese mythology. Like the movie starts with the creation of Japan, so it's like the Japanese creation myth.
Oh wow, I bet that's
wild. Really, yeah, and and he plays one of the legendary heroes from Japanese mythology. And the big draw for kaiju fans is there's an 8-headed dragon in it at one point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's interesting.
It's crazy. There's like everybody it's like a who's who of Toho actors. Like everybody is in this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyway. Anyway, so I wanted to know, how were you and your family treated as expatriates in Japan?
We were treated great. My whole experience in Japan was absolutely wonderful and beautiful. And I spoke Japanese when I was there. I learned how to speak Japanese, and so I felt like I was always taken care of. I always had a million big brothers watching out for me. And and so I was treated great. My mom was treated great. At one point, my mom taught English to a bunch of Japanese bigwigs, some big corporation, like the elite of the elite, and she taught them English. And so one of them had this summer retreat in Mount Fuji, and they invited us to go to Mount Fuji. And so my mom couldn't go, but I went and spent like a weekend at their house, or a week. I don't remember exactly how long, but it was a fabulous experience, you know. So I was treated great. I never had any bad experiences. Well, I had one, my girlfriend and I, who was a Japanese model and about 6 inches taller than me, we were on a train late at night, and it was really crowded. And one of the guys got on, and he was drunk, and he mentioned something about Hiroshima, and everybody was very quiet. And then he got off, and that's the only time I ever had any. And it wasn't a bad experience; it just was a little uncomfortable, you know.
Did you have to go through any culture shock while you were there?
See, being a military kid and going with your dad everywhere he's stationed, you become extremely flexible. So I would say no, but there were cultural things I had to, you know, learn and embrace. But shock, no. Okay. I adapt really well to my environment.
Well, it sounds like it.
I did have a situation. My girlfriend and I were at a bar, and bars in Japan are not like you think of, like a tavern or something here. You go to the bar, and it's like you can eat and you can drink if you want. It's just a nice atmosphere. And there were 2 GIs there that were drunk and making asses of themselves. and my girlfriend, this was I had one American friend. So my American friend and I were very embarrassed and kind of scolded them, and then they left, you know. Because then I thought, oh yeah, this is the picture of the ugly American that, you know, everybody talks about. But yeah, but no, I was treated great, you know. I always felt safe. I always felt I would be taken care of. I really was spoiled to be, you know, when I look back on it, I really was spoiled, but I appreciated everything, you know.
It's interesting finding out that your dad was in the Air Force. I'm from an Air Force family myself. Now it's a little different. My parents were in the Air National Guard. So it's not quite the same, but, you know, I still had some of the similar experiences. You know, in fact, my parents actually here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I live, there's an air base here, and they actually met on the air base.
Oh, you know what the saddest day of my life was? When I turned 18. Yes. Well, after we came back is when I turned almost 21, and they took my military ID card away from me. Because once you turn 18, or once you get out of college, they take it away. And so I couldn't go to the bases anymore unless I was with my dad. And, you know, that was a really sad day when they took it away. And I came kind of close after I came back from Japan and went through the whole Hollywood thing and said, that's it. I don't want to be part of that. I came really close to enlisting in the Air Force because I thought, you know, what a great experience I had. But things happened and I didn't follow through. And now looking back, I think I could have done that. I could have been retired at 40, had a pension, you know, blah, 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 blah.
I'm also sitting here thinking, it's like the only thing that would have made that even more perfect is if you actually became a nurse, like an actual military.
I would never be a nurse. No, I don't know. I don't like even the smell in the hospital. Yeah.
I just think it would have been funny. It's just like, I choose it in real life.
She's really in the military.
Yeah, she really is. Yeah. All right. So that's all great to hear. So let's, you know, let's talk about the part that, you know, that really, you know, that
the reason I'm here.
Yeah, that's kind of the big reason that we're here. You were in 2 movies, most notably, like I said, King Kong Escape. So you've told this story many times, but yeah, how did you get the part of Susan in King Kong Escapes?
Easy peasy. Everything in Japan just came to me. You know, I was like the fortune child. So anyway, I'm sitting in my home one day, phone rings, and this voice on the phone introduces himself as Arthur Rankin. Who's Arthur Rankin? And he says,
I guess he wouldn't have been famous necessarily at that point. I don't know.
I'm living in Japan when he's doing all the Rankin Bass stuff.
Yeah, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And
I didn't know who he was. So he introduces himself and he says, I'm making a movie and I would very much like to talk to you about being in my movie. And I wasn't sure if it was a real thing or not. You know? I'm going, what? I said, I can't be in your movie. I'm not an actress. I don't know how to act. And he said, well, just meet with me. So I wound up meeting with him 3 times before I said yes. And he basically said, look, the part is not that difficult. Even you can do it, Linda. No, he didn't say that. But he said, it's not that difficult. He says, and the thing is, in my mind, you look like Susan Watson. This is kind of the image I had for that part. And you fit that image. I think you'd be great in my movie. And so after a while, he wore me down. And I told him, I said, I'm afraid I'm going to ruin your movie. But if you're willing to take a chance, all right, then I'll do it, you know.
So I have to ask, on that meeting, how much of the movie did he actually tell you about?
He said it was King Kong, and I would be playing the Fay Ray part. And that's about all I remember him telling me.
Oh, okay. Because I was just wondering if he did the same thing that Marion C. Cooper did to poor Fay Ray back in the 30s. Because the story goes, he got her in the movie by saying, you're going to be the co-star with like the darkest, most handsome leading man in Hollywood right now. And she thought, she had this image in her head. It's like, oh, I get to act with Cary Grant. And then she gets on set and Cary Grant is nowhere to be found.
No, I didn't know that it was a leading part. You know, I thought it was a part. I mean, he said Fay Ray part, but, you know, ding dong, I didn't grasp it. And so when I read the script, I said, Mom, I'm almost on every page here, you know, which came as a real shock. But, you know, and the way he found me is, I think I mentioned it. I had a contract for a year to do the cover of a weekly magazine. And he saw the cover and found out I was living in Japan. I don't know how he found all this out, but found out I was living in Japan. And he probably thought, she's got the look. She's not going to be that expensive. I'm not going to have to pay her, you know, SAG scale or anything. So he thought, it's a good match. She got the look and it'll save me some money, which it did.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. So who did you work with the most on this?
Takarada.
Takarada? Okay.
I worked with him the most. Well, I worked with the blue screen a lot.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. But Takarada and Rhodes, but I would say probably a little bit more with Takarada because in the movie, our relationship was friendlier than it was with, you know, Captain Nelson or whatever his name is. Yeah. Than it was with Rhodes. Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to work obviously a lot with director Honda.
Oh, yes. Every day. I was on the set, I think almost every day. You know, I'm sure I had a day or two off, but I think almost every day I was on the set. And he was really a nice man.
Oh, Honda? Oh yeah. That's a big, you know, that's something that all of us kaiju fans, that's one of the reasons I was actually excited to know that I was in a Facebook group with you. I was like, she worked with the Shiro Honda, as at the time Takarada-san was still with us.
Yeah.
So yeah. I was a little less concerned about that, but obviously very concerned now.
Yeah. He and I, in 2000, I'm probably jumping ahead if you don't mind.
No, it's all right.
Pull me back if you need to. In 2015, when I got the phone call that there was a fan base for this movie, and I was shocked. Then I had a guy contact me in the end of 2015. Anyway, one of those years. And in 2016, we went to Japan, and I did a convention with Nakajima-san and Takarada-san. And so that was the first time I had ever met Nakajima as a man. And that was, then seeing Takarada again after all those years.
Did you go up to Mr. Nakajima and say, "You're my boyfriend," or something?
No. No, I should have. That would have been great. No, but it was the first time we met. There's one time we met outside of the dressing room or the makeup room or one of the little, they don't have trailers, but like little bunkers. And he happened to be there, but he was in uniform. He has costume on. So I never met the man. So in Japan, it was the first time I ever met the man. And that was a real treat.
Yeah, well, that actually brings a kind of a related question here. Let me see if I can bring this up, because there's a promotional image that I've seen get floated around. This one right here with you, and I'm assuming that's just the suit.
That's just a suit, just the head.
Okay.
Yeah. I was floating around somewhere, and there was a photographer there, and I don't know why I made that face, but I did.
It's supposed to be like very concerned Susan right there.
or something. I'm not sure what was going in my head. But that was just one of those pictures. It wasn't meant for publicity or anything.
Oh, okay. Well, somehow it got out, because I've seen that picture pretty frequently.
Yeah, I actually I think on my King Kong Facebook page posted it once, and then I saw it everywhere,
Yeah. And speaking of when you met Nakajima and Takarada again, I got a picture of that here as well.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's you with this little Kong doll.
Yeah. See how tall Takarada was?
I know. I've met him several times, and yes, he is quite tall.
He and Rhodes were both tall, and so that worked out. But when you're short like that, you say, "Can you put me on a crate so I can look taller?" Oh, it was so funny. One of my conventions I did, I signed an autograph, and then I took a selfie with the person, and we were getting ready to take the selfie, and he looked down at me and he said, "You look a lot taller in the movies."
Well, it's just kind of funny looking at this image, because it's like, there's always been this kind of implied kind of attraction between you and Takarada in the movie, but then you've got Nakajima over here as Kong.
Yeah.
Who clearly had a thing for you in this movie, because
in
he's
the
King
movie,
Kong. It's what he does,
Yeah.
So it's like it's you with both of your boyfriends, from the movie. Because I've heard you say that it's like how you kind of viewed Kong. It's like, he's my boyfriend.
Yeah. In fact, he's right here with me now.
Oh, there he is. Gotta love it.
Yeah. So
with his big old gorilla arms,
Yeah.
It looks like he wants to give everybody a hug.
Yes, he's hugging everybody.
Yeah. So you worked primarily with Takarada. You got to be with Rhodes a lot. I know you talked a little bit with Kim about working with Yamamoto. Yamamoto, Doctor Who.
Yeah, he's my favorite of all the cast members. I would say he was my favorite, because he was so entertaining and so odd and so weird in such an endearing way. Pardon?
I mean, I'm just gonna say, look at the man. Like you see his costuming in this. I mean, what's kind of funny is they respelled that character's name in America. Because I think he's supposed to, it's implied that he's supposed to be Chinese, so it's supposed to be H-U, Doctor Who, but then they spelled it W-H-O, which is like the British TV show.
Well, see, that's how it's in my script, W-H-O.
Okay. Because, but like, yeah, look at him in this.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the way he even dresses in this movie is very eccentric, and he looks like he could be in the British TV show, because that was one of the staples of that character, was that he had an eccentric wardrobe.
Well, he certainly was eccentric. He was a great guy.
Yeah. I just, this picture just amused me to no end when I saw this, because you got like these two are kind of having a bit of a battle of wits here, and then you're just like, what's going on?
Yeah. Can you translate, please?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that was something you mentioned with Kim, was that, you knew a little bit of Japanese, so you could kind of understand what, at least conversationally, what was going on.
Yes.
But you're on set, all of the Japanese actors are speaking Japanese, and all the English speakers are saying their lines in English.
Yes.
So, I mean, what was that like? I mean, did it create any sort of difficulty, or did you, because you knew what they were actually saying, because you've read the script, you knew how to respond, or did you kind of pick up on the energy that they were giving you?
You would think it would create chaos. It felt as natural and normal, and I was quite surprised. But because we know the script, we know what they're saying, even though they're saying it in a different language. We know what the script says, so that's what you react to, or respond to, because you know what they're saying, even though you don't know what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was going to be weird, but it wasn't weird at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's been a couple of instances where that's happened. Famously, Nick Adams, who was in Monster Zero or Invasion of Astro Monster, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, whichever title you prefer. It's had several popular ones. He did the same thing. He was also in Frankenstein Conquers the World, where he's speaking English, but all of his co-stars are speaking Japanese. Yeah. So he had a similar thing like that. And then it happened. But here's the interesting thing. Obviously, we'll talk about this, when they released your movie in Japan, and when they released Monster Zero in Japan, they dubbed all the English speakers over with Japanese actors. But interestingly, there was a Godzilla film made in 2004 that also had an English speaking actor in it. His name was Don Fry. He used to be an MMA.
Don Fry. Yeah, I know Don. Yeah.
Oh, so you know Don. And he says all of his lines in English in the movie, and they don't mess with it. So it's kind of surreal, because he's saying all of his lines in English, everybody else is speaking Japanese, and everybody just understands each other, and nobody bats an eye at the fact that they're all speaking two different languages. Yeah. And I kind of love it.
I'd love to see that, actually. I bet that was fun.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, who's going to dub over Don Fry? I mean, like, because he's throwing out all of these action movie one-liners and things like that. He's telling off the bad guys, and saying, like, it's like, there are two things you don't know about Earth. One is me, and the other is Godzilla. It's like,
who's going to mess with that?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I even made this joke. It's something actually Kim and I got started. Oops, sorry. We'll do it live. But Kim and I did this thing, like, it was popular on the internet to make what were called Chuck Norris facts. So it's like all these ridiculous jokes about what a tough guy Chuck Norris is. Well, we kind of took the same sort of idea, but applied it to Don Fry. And one of the new ones I came up with was that there was a guy who tried to dub over Don Fry for Final Wars, but then he lost his voice permanently.
That serves him right.
Yeah. So we had a lot of fun with that. So what was Amamoto like?
just what you would think he was like by looking at him. He
Mm.
was odd and weird and charming and interesting. He was Doctor Who in life. So
you told Kim that it sounded like from what you told Kim that he enjoyed that costume quite a bit.
Yeah, he had that red cape, and he'd be, in between takes, we'd be talking, and when he got ready to leave, he would twirl it around and make a grand exit. So,
I mean,
it just was so cute.
I'm a sucker for capes myself, and he had an interesting career. He did a bunch of bit roles for the most part. I think Doctor Who was actually one of his first big roles, and then he famously played another villain with a cape in the early 70s on the Kamen Rider TV show. He was one of the main villains. Yeah, his name was Dr. Shinigami.
Shinigami.
Yeah,
he was he was just very, very interesting guy.
Yeah. So what was Takarada like?
He was very nice to me. He was like talkative, and in between takes we would talk, and he just was very normal. I didn't know who he was, thank God. So I was nervous enough, so I didn't know who he was. And so he just was like just another guy and just very normal. And he talked about his family. And at that time he was married to Miss Universe. And so we just chit chatted in between takes, and it's very easy to talk to.
I was going to say, it's interesting that you're in awe of Toshiro Mifune, but one of Takarada's...
Who the heck is Takarada?
I was going to say, yeah, but it's just like, it's funny because one of Takarada's nicknames at the kind of the height of his career when he was starting off was Mr. Handsome.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Apparently he was considered like, especially when, in the 50s and 60s, he was like considered like the Japanese equivalent of like a Cary Grant or something like that.
Well, see, he was unusual in that he was tall. And most of the Japanese men were not tall. But he was. So he had that going for him, and he was good looking and talented and charismatic and all the things you would need to be called Mr. Handsome,
Yeah. My friend Danny, I think it was Danny. My friend Danny DiManna told me this story about, I can't remember if it was something he saw or something he heard about. I want to say he saw this. He met Takarada, and this is like old Takarada, senior citizen Takarada. Yeah. And they were out someplace, and because when in Japan, and a bunch of very young women saw him or were just flocking around him. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, all of you put together are probably equal his age. What is going on here? It's like, so even when he was that age, he just had this magnetism to him.
I can't remember what convention I was at, but there was somebody there whose mother or friend or whatever was Japanese. And when she found out I had worked with Takarada-san, she about came unglued. She was like, oh, and she just was so thrilled, and she almost fainted. It was that's the kind of fame that he had.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, I'm glad I didn't know that, because I would have even been more nervous and more, freaked out when I did the film.
Yeah. It's, I think I've heard you talk about before about how he was pretty easygoing, helped you out with, gave you some acting tips and things like that.
Yeah. He was very easygoing. Yeah. Yeah. And he and Rhodes got along really well.
I was going to ask, what was Rhodes like on this shoot?
Rhodes was very theatrical. He had that booming voice.
Oh, yeah.
And very, very theatrical. And so his favorite line was, like, when you're with him and you're parting ways, his favorite line was, "It's always a pleasure to say goodbye to you," and he'd say that every time we'd leave. And he was really nice to me then. He did an interview when we came back from the States that he just trashed me. And I read it and I was like, God, I got my feelings hurt when I read it, you know?
Yeah.
You're like, what? I mean, yeah. So, but anyway, but because when I came back from the States, you know, he had my parents and I over for dinner at his house with his family, hooked me up with an acting coach, hooked me up with an agent. In fact, when Richard Dawson of Family Feud, do you remember who Richard Dawson is?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Might be a little before my time.
Yeah, very much before your time. This was in the 70s. No, this was, yeah, early 70s. Richard Dawson had asked me out and Rhodes wouldn't let me go. No, you're not going out with that guy, you know. So he was very, so when, you know, we lost touch in the 80s. He did Annie on Broadway. And after that was over, one day he just, you know, kind of out of the blue showed up at our house and he was kind of different. And then I never saw him again after that. And then I read that article and I went, oh my God. So that was very hurtful, but you know, what are you going to do?
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I'm sure I've said hurtful things about other people. So
you're like the nicest person here.
I don't know. I have my moments.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure we all do. So how long was this film shoot? Or at least how long were you working on it?
I was on it from day one to the end. I think it was about 2 months.
2 months, okay.
2.5, 2 months. It was a long time. It was like every day. And yeah, because we went to Oshima Island. We were there for a week or two. Don't remember exactly. And we were on the set every day.
Yep. So is Oshima Island the only location filming that you do, or did you go other places?
That was it.
That was it? So you were primarily working on, except for the Oshima shoot, were you primarily just working on the Toho studio a lot?
Yeah, on the soundstage.
On the soundstage, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they were probably filming the special effects in a different part of the studio.
Oh, I'm sure, because all I ever saw, well, I saw two things. All I ever was a part of is the blue screen. And then the hand lifting me up.
I was going to say, yeah, one of my other questions was like, what was it like working with the big on-set props, you know, like the Kong hand and things like that?
It was odd. It was weird. It was like, see, I was trying in my mind, couldn't figure out how they were going to do everything. How is a 5 foot tall girl going to interact with this gigantic ape? You know, I couldn't understand. And so, they explained to me, okay, we're going to lift you up and you're going to do this. And then we're going to superimpose all this other stuff around you. And I said, okay. So I didn't really get it until I saw the film. I went, oh, that's what they meant, you know? So it was difficult, but that's when Rhodes did help me. He said, you know, you've got to, in your mind's eye, you've got to imagine whatever scene you're in, whatever it's happening, you've got to imagine that is happening at that moment and react as if it's really happening. And so he helped me with that kind of aspect. And he was much nicer to me on the set than he was afterwards.
Go figure. Well, it's interesting.
You know what? He died on my birthday too.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. It's almost like you willed it, you know?
and that was before I didn't see the article until I was in San Francisco. It was right at the end of COVID, like 20 or 21. And then somebody showed me the article and I read it and I was like, I could just feel all the blood draining from my face. I was going,
oh no.
Yeah. But yeah, he was very nice on the set. He was very
okay. Nice. Well, I was just going to say, I know it's been very common to criticize actors who, if they're doing special effects films and they have to basically act to nothing. You know, I know a lot of, with like the last 25, 30 years, what they do is, it's a little bit of a joke, is they run around with a pole with a tennis ball. So, and they tell everybody, look at the tennis ball, react to the tennis ball, because that's where they're going to put the effects, you know, like if you're acting to a creature, that's where the creature's face is going to be, you know, and things like that. And I actually heard, I can't remember who it was. It was a big Hollywood actor actually said, no, this is the highest form of acting because it is true acting. You are pretending something is there and you are reacting to it.
To nothing.
To nothing.
Yes.
And you have to make that look good. So it is the highest form of acting.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have the tennis ball. They would just point, say, okay, over there, or point over there.
Yeah. Did the big hand prop help at all?
No, because I'm sitting in it.
Okay.
And I mean, I suppose it probably helped some. But I was just sitting in it and holding on for dear life so I wouldn't fall off, because they jacked it up, and it was like, I couldn't have jumped down or dangled my feet and touched the floor. They lifted me.
Here it is right here. This is what I used for the thumbnail for the
interview
tonight.
Yeah. I look like I'm so comfortable, and I was not. Hand was kind of hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How big was it?
Just as big as that. It was gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that right there is an actual shot of me in a hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells you how big of a hand that was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so, like, the way that this is, it's cropped, we'll say, it's how much, we see like a hand and a wrist. How much are we, how much farther off would the camera have to go before we actually see that it's attached to nothing,
Oh, I don't know, quite a ways.
Yeah. Was that long?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Was it like a full?
Quite a ways. Let's quantify quite a ways.
You probably have to. Was it like a full forearm or something like that?
Probably like the elbow.
Okay.
Imagine to the elbow.
Okay. Wow. Did it move or anything? Or is it just,
no,
nice and solid?
It moved because they moved it up, but the hand itself didn't move.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did they move it?
It was like on a crane almost.
A crane. Oh, okay.
Maybe not a crane, but it was on hydraulics of some sort.
Okay.
And it hit a buzzer and it would go, I'd hold on for dear life.
How high up were you on this thing?
I think it was like 10 feet or so off the ground.
Oh, geez. That's still a little bit of a tumble.
Oh, yeah. So I was definitely making sure I was holding on tight.
As I say, did they have anything under you in case you fell off? Wow.
Just the concrete floor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ray didn't have to do that. Look at you. You're braver than her.
Well, they didn't coddle the actors back then.
Yeah, but I actually, this is one of my favorite pictures of you from the movie, because it's some actual interaction between you and Kong, and you have a nice smile on here. A lot of the other ones you look like a little scared or whatever, because it's from other parts of the movie.
That's at conventions. That's one of I have 3 photos that are the most popular, and that's one of the 3.
Yeah. Actually, I've got my DVD copy of the movie here. Yeah. I'm a physical media guru. I'm actually putting serious thought into upgrading to the Blu-ray. So, it's got this kind of,
I'll tell you what,
kind of goofy Photoshop here, but for the cover, but actually you're in 2 of the pictures on the back.
Okay. I'll tell you what, send me your address and I'll send you a Blu-ray.
Oh, really?
Yes, really.
You would do that? Oh, I'm so,
yes,
that makes me so happy. That makes me so happy. Yeah. That makes me so happy. But yeah, I think I found some of these online, but there's one of you. Look, I think it's from the end of the movie when you're calling out to Kong.
Kong.
Yeah. And then there's this one. And it's when Gorosaurus is trying to get
oh,
you.
Yes. Oh, I've got that picture too.
Yeah. That's another creature we could talk about. I was like, you had some interaction with Gorosaurus here too.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So, what was that scene like when you were doing that one?
Well, okay. I was not in the scene with him at all. Obviously. But that is, I remember Honda telling me he's going to pick you up and put you in a tree for safety. Kong is for safety.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like Fay Ray.
Yeah. And I said, okay. I'm going, okay, if you say so. And then he said, I want you to respond by putting your hand against your mouth and looking frightened. And he actually did it for me. He acted it for me. He said, do it just like this. I said, okay. So I just copied what he did.
Yeah. Actually, I found a closer version of one of that other picture.
That was
no, actually, no, excuse me. That's a different one. That's also from the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's Tokyo Tower.
That's when he's climbing Tokyo Tower. Yeah.
We filmed that like at 3 o'clock in the morning or something. We were all so tired.
Yeah. So you had to, pretend to be frightened. So I'm guessing you didn't see most, if any of the special effects while making it, and then you had to wait until seeing the movie.
I did. Mm-hmm. I saw partially. One day in between takes, excuse me, I was roaming around the lot, and I went into one of the sound stages, and they had all the miniatures like on like, what do you call it? They're up on racks, kind of.
Okay.
And all the little teeny miniatures. They had the trees, and they had the village and all that. And so I watched them when they filmed the part where the helicopters come and bomb Kong with the gas. I watched them film that. And then I watched them take Kong up with the helicopters and take him away. So I watched them film that. And it was amazing. If you would, if you just stood there and looked, you went, oh, it looks like fake trees. But if you got down and kind of squinted your eyes and imagined what it was going to look like when it was big, it looked very, very good. And so I enjoyed watching that a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen this a lot too. This is this is the American poster.
Yes,
for the movie, and there's you and Takarada right here in the corner.
Okay, can you see when you come back? I meant when you get out of that screen.
Oh, okay. You want me to shut off the?
Yes, I want you to get out of there.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, can you see?
It's back there. I'm silly. Yeah.
On my wall.
Yeah, I'm silly. I should have paid more attention.
That's all right. That's all right.
Well, yeah. I should look up the Japanese poster. Is it?
I don't have it with me, but I have the Japanese poster as well. I've been sent posters from around the world. I don't have all of them.
Yep. You are in. I'm looking at the Japanese poster now. You are actually in the Japanese poster. It's the same image too. That's in the corner. They just put it in there. Although Madame Piranha is right next to you and Takarada in the Japanese poster, obviously.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm just
that's okay.
Complete lapse there. Yeah.
And there's my greens. There's my
green slime. Yeah. Yeah. Which we will talk about. And I just want to show this is another nice picture I found of you from the film.
Okay. I still can't believe he cast me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still have the costume?
No, I wish I did. If I did, though, I wouldn't be able to fit into it. I lost 10 pounds for the movie. I weighed 100 pounds there.
Wow.
I was thin.
Yeah. You could have at least kept the hat. That would have.
I had a fan who made me that hat.
It made you the hat.
It's too big, but he made me the hat. No, I've thought, wouldn't it be great one day just to, go to one of the panel, talks and walk on stage with my uniform on.
That would be great. I would say, yes. All right. Let me see. What else do I have on here? So you got the props. What was your favorite scene to film or a favorite memory from the shoot?
Okay. Oh, man. I'll tell you my most frightening.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We can work with that.
First day of shooting.
Ooh.
Because I was terrified and feeling fully aware of how incompetent I was, because I didn't know what I was doing. So anyway, the scene in the beginning in the subway where Lieutenant Watson walks in and everybody's saluting, and she says she's going to give him castor oil or something like that. That scene was the most frightening scene to me because I was so afraid, and I couldn't. That scene was shot more than any other scene in the movie, more times, because I felt I was very wooden, and I didn't feel natural. You know, when somebody tells you to walk and they're looking at you, you know, you feel self-conscious. So that was the most terrifying scene in the movie to me, was that. And then my favorite scene, which you guys don't see, is when we're at Tokyo Tower and I've finally been saved from the tower, and I come running up to Rhodes and to Takarada-san, and Rhodes challenged me before we did the scene to be able to cry. It was like, you've got to be able to cry if you're an actress, right? And I cried. And that was my favorite scene because nobody sees it but me, you know.
Aww.
So that was my favorite scene. But I've got a couple of scenes that just horrify me. When I look at them, I go, oh my God, cut that scene out, please, you know. But actually, it's so funny because I hadn't seen the film from the day it premiered in Japan until 2016. Because when I saw it on TV and I heard my voice when I came back to the States, and then that was it. I didn't want to ever see it again. I never told anybody about it. It was like my little secret. And then in 2016, I was in Austin, Texas, visiting some high school friends, and we had a King Kong party. And I said, oh, no, don't make me watch it. Don't make me watch it. So they said, no, we want to watch it. So they put it on. And as an older woman watching myself as a young girl and not being so critical as when you are, you know, young and pretty and, you know, all that skinny and all that good stuff. I went, well, I didn't do as bad a job as I thought I did. You know, I mean, it wasn't Oscar performance, but I thought, well, that wasn't bad for someone who had no idea what she was doing. You know?
Well, it doesn't help that it's not. I don't know if it helped or hindered. I don't know if what your reevaluation was helped or hindered by the fact that it's not your voice.
By the fact of what?
It's not your voice.
Oh, that still is something I'll never get used to.
I do want to talk about that because because it's like when I learned about that, it was heartbreaking. My heart broke for you once I knew that and I watched the movie again. I'm like, man.
Yeah. You know,
it's just
when Rhodes said to me, you know, they're going to dub the film. They're going to call you to Hollywood. You're going to have to go. We'll have to dub our film all over in English. I said, okay. Call never came. And so then when I got back to the States, that's when I found out that they had dubbed my voice. But I had not heard it yet. I didn't hear it till it was on TV. And so I don't know why, unless, you know, Julie, whatever her, I can't remember.
Julie Bennett.
Okay. She did all the females' voices, and Paul Frees, I think, did all the male voices. So he was like maybe got a package deal or something. I don't know.
He most famously, he was Doctor Who.
Yeah.
He was great. I love his dub voice for Doctor Who so much because it's so very Paul Frees, you know, almost Boris from
almost like if Rhodes had done it, because Rhodes is very theatrical. Yeah. But you know, so I told a friend, I said, if Arthur were still alive and if I ever met him, I think I'd go up to him and slap him.
Yeah.
Say, what were you thinking? You know?
Yeah. Did you? I think I know the answer to this, but I just have to ask: did you ever meet Julie Bennett or at any point? No. Yeah, she's no longer with us. She died a few years ago.
Yeah. I mean, she was a great talent, and I think she was instructed to make it sound like a little whiny girl or something.
Yeah.
But I had a dream a couple of months ago. I dreamed I was on the streets of New York and I ran into Arthur. And I woke up before I could ask him, why? Why did you do that? So, you know.
Yeah. I will admit, I was like, I don't know what direction they gave her in the sound booth. Because doing ADR, like what Rhodes was telling about, it's actually pretty common in the film industry. And although they were probably doing that for the American releases, they were going to dub over the Japanese actors with English, obviously, but they probably wanted to do some ADR work for the English speakers as well. I think in Japan, they typically kept the on-set audio because they were pretty good at actually recording it. But, it's still common practice in Hollywood to redo the lines. You are not the only actress who's had that happen. The episode hasn't come. Yeah, I haven't released this episode yet, but I just recorded an episode on the Valley of Gwanji, which was from 1969. It was a dinosaur movie with cowboys the special effects were done by Ray Harryhausen. And there's the lead actress in that. I can't remember her name offhand right now, but she was a Polish-born Israeli, and she was a beautiful woman, but her accent was so thick they dubbed over her for the release. And this was an English movie. This was an English-speaking movie. They had, because her accent was just so thick that they had to dub over her, and nobody knows who dubbed her. Yeah. But at least we know it was Julie Bennett for you in the English. And I actually found the name of the actors who dubbed you in Japanese.
Yeah.
Her name was Akiko Santo.
Well, Brett Homnick sent me an email with a picture of him with her and said, this is the actress who dubbed over your voice in Japanese. And when I went to the premiere in Tokyo and saw the Japanese version, I thought her voice was great. She did a great job,
Yeah. I will tell you right now, if I was able to, I would pay all kinds of money for someone to go into the Toho vaults and somehow find a print of this movie that still has your audio track in it. And I will pay them money to put out some sort of a special edition that has your original audio track in it.
Wouldn't that be fantastic? But every time there's a scream in the movie, that's my voice. They kept that.
at least that's you.
At least I did something.
At least you're still in there, because like I said, I want to hear you as Susan in this movie so bad.
Well, I had quite a complex because I thought, oh my God, my acting wasn't that great. And oh my God, my voice must be horrible that they didn't use it. So that's why I never told anybody it was in the movie. It's so embarrassing.
Yeah. According to the research that I've done, because like I said, I did a bunch of reading about King Kong Escapes and like all the movies that I cover on the podcast. And the only theory that I saw get put forward about why basically boiled down to unions. Unions. Because Rhodes was a member of SAG and you weren't.
I wasn't. Yeah.
That's the only one that I've seen put forward as to why. Otherwise, people are like, we don't know,
But a year later, I was a member of SAG.
It was too late, I guess.
Too late. Yeah.
But like I said, I would love for someone to just dig through that archive and find it, because I want to see this movie with your language track. I mean, you would. Unless they just completely discarded it, I don't know. It's like the first, we'll say, fictional movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in the early 70s. He had barely been in America. And, he's still in bodybuilder shape. Like, he's still Mr. Olympia in this. It was called Hercules in New York.
I saw that.
And he's playing Hercules. And his accent, his English was still not great at this point, because he'd only been in America for a few years. And his accent was so thick that when they first released the movie, they dubbed over him. And I caught part of that version of the movie one time on TV. And I'm like, you're not Arnold. Because I know what Arnie sounds like. That is not Arnie, sir. But now I remember that when they released it on like VHS, DVD, and now you can, at least last I checked anyway, you could watch it on Tubi, so you can stream it. And they actually advertised it on DVD or whatever. It's like includes Arnold's original voice track.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and the version that's on Tubi, I watched a few minutes of it, and I was like, that's voice. Arnold's voice. His accent's ridiculous, but that's Arnold's voice, because it's very thick,
Well, even so now,
again, you're in good company. It happened to Arnold.
Yay! I don't feel so bad now.
Yeah. So, but at least they had the original track, so they could release it, and that make that a bit of a marketing thing for the movie. It's like, hey, we got Arnold's original voice track. Like I said, I would pay good money to see that happen.
I would pay good money if I had good money. I would pay good money to get it, listen to it first, and then if it was as bad as I think it may have been, then I would not let anybody else listen to it.
Yeah, you got to screen it first, But I can't imagine that it sounds as squeaky as Julie Bennett makes it sound.
I can't imagine either.
He's like, hi, I'm here. I'm a nurse in the
UN on this ship.
It's like what the heck? Like it sounds. Well, you can tell she made. It wasn't her entire career, because I did look. I was like, what actually did she do? I think I erroneously said on the episode that she was the voice of Judy Jetson. She's not the voice of Judy Jetson, but she did work for Hanna-Barbera doing a bunch of cartoon voices.
Yes, and that makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
So it's no wonder when you watch her dub over, dub Linda over, she's like, hi. It's like, I'm a cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have seen the Japanese cut as well, and yes, Akiko does much better by you for sure.
Well, they were on Kaiju TV. Is that what? Not Kaiju.
Kaiju TV.
Thank you. It was on last night. No, today's Friday. It was on last night, and I was going to watch it with my friend Dwayne, and I was somewhere else, and I wasn't able to get out and get home in time. But we were going to watch it together because he said the Japanese version was on. So I hadn't seen that since I was in Tokyo back in '67 when we made the film. We wrapped in June, I think, end of June, and it was already in the movie theaters in September.
Yeah, they had a fast turnaround.
Yeah.
That for 1967. For a lot of kaiju fans, that we kind of like to call it the year of the kaiju, because every studio in Japan released a kaiju movie. There were even some foreign studios that released kaiju movies in 1967. And Toho, because it's Toho, they put out 2, and yours was one of them.
Yeah.
The other one was Son of Godzilla. So, so they had that, but like that year, so you had King Kong Escapes, Son of Godzilla. What was the game? It was Gamera versus Gyaos. That was the Daiei movie.
They had Gamera Destroy All Planets with Carl Craig.
Yeah, that was the year after that, 1968.
Yeah. But he and I used to live in the same at Grand Heights at the same time.
Yeah, which I'm planning on. I need to reach out to him, but he gave me his card and said, I want to be on your podcast, so I'm going to interview him too.
We can announce it now. He's going to be at G-Fest this year.
Oh, he is?
Yes.
Woo!
Yes.
He's coming back.
I've been holding my tongue, and I just got word from my manager. Okay, go crazy. He said it's official.
You know what that means?
What?
I get to interview him at the podcast at the con, because I was told that because I'm part of the Gamera 60th anniversary panel, and I was told that there might be celebrity interviews. So yeah. So
he is great at interviews. He's got all these stories, and he's never at a loss for words. So you'll really enjoy that. And he's a terrific guy.
Yeah, I got to talk with him a little bit at All Monsters Attack when it moved to Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting all these messages from people about that. about him. It's official now.
Yeah, because you mentioned when you were talking to Kim that you guys were friends, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. So
he and I are doing a movie together.
Oh, you are? What is it?
It's not a kaiju movie. Well, yes, we're doing a kaiju movie, but we're also doing
Kaiju Island of Fire.
Yes.
Okay.
And you know what's funny? It's been announced. Our names are on the credits, and we haven't shot a scene yet.
For this other movie or Island of Fire?
For Kaiju Fire Island.
Oh, okay.
We haven't shot a scene yet, and we've been paid half of our money. And I said to Carl, "Well,
these guys are very confident. I can tell.
Not only have they paid us, now we're on the credits. Anyway. Yeah. So he and I, at one of the conventions, I met an independent filmmaker, and he lives in the same area that Carl lives in Northern Virginia. And so he said, I've got a part for you if you're interested. So he sent me the script. I got it right after Kaiju Brooklyn. And I came home that day and there was the script waiting for me. And so I am playing a woman who's married to a mob boss, going through a divorce, and I'm putting a hit out on him.
Oh,
not a very nice lady, and I'm looking forward to it because
I was going to say this is why you got to watch out for the short ones.
Yes, yeah.
This is I've joked with this. I've joked with this because I've known a lot of short girls in my time, and I tell them it's like you got to, in my experience, you got to watch out for the short ones because the shorter they are, the feistier they get. It's because it's like it's like small dogs. They know they don't look intimidating.
Chihuahuas, right?
Yeah, it's like they because they know they don't look intimidating, so they have to act intimidating. They gotta act mean. To scare off the big dogs.
People underestimate me because I look so she looks like a nice person, and I am. Until I reach that certain point where you just really, really make me angry and then I explode. I make up for it. Anyway, that's not even important to say. You can get that out if you want to.
Yeah. So my last question concerning King Kong, and then we'll talk for a little bit about the green slime.
Okay.
Is if given the opportunity, would you play Susan again?
Yes, you know the answer to that. Yes, I would. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And this time we just won't. You're not going to get dubbed over. We actually get to hear.
Oh, hallelujah! Yeah, I would do it just so everybody could hear my voice.
Yeah. And like I said, in my head, I like to think that Takarada's character and Susan, they got together. She had a nice long career, and now she's a retired nurse. And who knows? That would be an interesting story. Like she's old and retired now, and maybe she has a little reunion with Kong or something like that.
Well, the thing is, Takarada and I get together. We have a boy and a girl, and then the girl grows up and she has a daughter who's deaf. Who hasn't.
There you go. Yes, you're in the MonsterVerse. You are officially in the MonsterVerse. We
keep it going. We keep it in the family.
You know what? Here, I'm gonna brainstorm this right now. This is like, if I get to make a MonsterVerse movie, this is what I'm doing.
Okay.
You're like a monarch, used to be like part of Monarch or whatever, and you visited Skull Island at one point and either met Kong when he was a wee little monkey, or maybe like his parents or something like that. So you have a connection to Kong, and now you've come back, and your daughter was the adopted mom for Gia, and now you're Gia's grandma.
Yeah. And I used to babysit Kong.
And you used to babysit Kong. Yeah. Kong in the MonsterVerse, he's like huge. The biggest Kong ever.
Kong, eat your vegetables.
I don't want. It's like, you have to punch the lizard. Eat your vegetables.
You need to be strong and manly.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said, like, when I made that valiant defense. I mean, I don't know if that dude who wrote that essay is ever going to read that article, or whatever, which has now that article's been republished on Kaiju United, by the way.
Oh.
So it's not just in the magazine, it's online now. Oh. And I don't know if that guy will ever read it, but I just don't understand that. It's like, you're not controlling Kong. That's what Doctor Who is doing. You're not controlling Kong. You are channeling Kong's, for lack of a better way to put it, his masculinity. You're like, here, I need you to go do this.
Yeah.
Don't run around being, don't run around being this crazy animal. I was like, I need you to go do this. I need your help, Kong. Go do
because
this.
we had a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when that's discovered, it's because he's getting riled up and going after the sub, and you get to be the hero in that moment. And you get to say, like, because they're like, he's not going to listen to us, and we don't want to shoot him, or we can't really shoot him. And then you're like, calm down. So it's not you manipulating this monkey like you're some, like you're some control freak girlfriend or something like that. And Kong is simping for you, to use the new vernacular. It's like, that's not it at all.
Yeah.
It's Kong does it because he wants to, because he needs to be focused and channeled.
You've given this a lot of thought, haven't you?
This is what I do. Listen to my show. This is what I do. And when I have read a lot of ridiculous academic criticism about a lot of things, and when I see it in this, for these for movies like this, I'm just like, okay, I can't abide this. I'm going to address it on the air. It's like, this is silly. All right. Yeah. This is absolutely silly. You got to work really hard to read this in here. Cause let me tell you, I've seen some crazy stuff, and, and then it's just like, and then after I actually have the privilege of meeting you a couple of times, it's like, I got to go to bat for Linda.
Thank you.
I have to go to bat for Linda, because no one should defame her like that. I don't care, Rhodes. It's like, everyone, please stop picking on Linda. All right. Okay. She's the Kaiju fandom's new favorite grandma. Like I said at the start, it's like, don't pick on grandma. All right.
God, that's so weird. Grandma, because as you get old, you shouldn't, but as you get old, you don't think, oh my God, I'm in my 70s now, I'm old. You don't, because you don't feel that, you don't think that. But then when you look at reality, you go, oh yeah, yeah, I am grandma. So anyway.
Yeah. So
yes.
So King Kong escapes.
Yes.
How did you get the part in the green slime?
Well, I did not audition. After King Kong Escapes wrapped, my one American friend who lived at the same housing complex that I did, she came to me and she said, Toei Studios is shooting a film and they've got 3 American actors. Let's go check it out. I said, okay, because Toei Studios was maybe 10 minutes from my house. And so we got in the car, we went over, and you could just get on the lot. There was no security or something. So we get there and we find out where they're filming. We go onto the sound stage and we're just standing on the sidelines. We're just watching them. And I don't know if it was a producer, director, somebody came up to us and said, girls, would you like to be in our movie? And we said, yeah. And that's how we got the part.
Yep. Yeah. So what were you? Because when I watched the green slime, I'm like, where's Linda? It was like, where's Waldo? It was like, where's Linda?
First of all, after Kong, I dyed my hair back to brown. And it was a little bit reddish brown, came out a little bit reddish brown. So if you look in the dance scene, I'm in the dance scene, doing that weird dance that we did, that somebody made up and had us do. And then in
case anyone doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, the green slime is here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was there for like 5 days or something like that. I don't even remember if I got paid. I must have gotten paid, but I don't remember it.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any lines, or
no,
were you
I didn't.
Just hanging out?
All I had was, I was like an extra. I was in the dance scene. I was in the infirmary. So that was basically it.
Mm-hmm.
I played one of the nurses there that I had a bandage around my head. I don't have any down here. I have pictures I could send you of what I was in the scene,
Okay.
But my hair's dark and it's pulled back and it's longer.
Mm. Yeah. Because the main actress in this was Luciana Paluzzi.
Uh-huh.
Paluzzi.
Paluzzi.
Okay. Yeah. So she was the lead
Yes.
in that one.
And she had just come off making Thunderball.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I don't know if she had just come off, but she had made Thunderball with Sean Connery, and Hambrick had just come off making You Only Live Twice with Sean Connery. So I worked with two of the Bond girls, you know.
Oh, there you go.
And in Green Slime, the captain's name was Captain Nelson, and in King Kong Escapes, Rhodes was Captain Nelson. So there's all these parallels between the two.
Yeah. By the way, if you ever looked at you have a Wikipedia page. Have you ever looked at your Wikipedia page?
What's it say?
Well,
oh dear.
I was going to say it's interesting, to say the least. Oh, come on. Let me see. Here we go. Now I got the tab here because it credits you in the Green Slime as nurse.
Yes. That's what I was. Nurse number whatever.
Yeah, just nurse. Although I have a bit of a. You need to talk to whoever picked the pictures for this for your entry, because what? This is the best picture they could go with. You shivering? Capes or something? What the heck?
Who does the Wikipedia pages?
Just whoever. Because that's how wiki pages work. Anybody can edit them as long as they have an account. Well, no, you don't even have to have an account. So, yeah, they went with this for your entry.
Okay.
But yeah, it says nurse.
Nurse.
I feel like you were a little typecast, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
Okay.
Does it say anything about My Three Sons or?
Yep, it's got My Three Sons right here.
Oh yeah. Oh, the new norm. It's got the new norm. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, is that the one you were mentioning before?
No, that was another one I did for a friend.
Oh, okay.
And I had lines that got cut.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, My Three Sons.
Oh,
and
Seven Faces of Man. Oh, they've got that. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's a Japanese television show?
Yes, right after it was in September, I filmed that. It was an hour-long TV show, like a detective show, and I played a princess from some country, some European country, and the detective there had to guard me because they were trying to kill me to create an international uprising.
Oh, yeah. It mentions here you went by the name Leslie Michaels?
In My Three Sons, yes.
Okay, yeah, because it says
My Three Sons.
It says you briefly pursued an acting career under the name Leslie Michaels.
Because there was already a Linda Miller, Jackie Gleason's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went to SAG, to get my SAG card, they said, I'm sorry, there's already a Linda Miller. Well, I wasn't bright enough to say, what about Linda Jo Miller? So
yeah,
my agent came up with the name Leslie Michaels, which I never liked. So in fact, during COVID, I contacted SAG to see if I still had membership, just curious.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're willing to stick around just a little bit longer, I would love to talk with you at least a little bit about life after these, your time in Japan. So when did you come back? When did you go back to America?
We came back in February of '68. And that's when I got into acting school and got an agent and all that. I did My Three Sons. I think it was the end of '68 or '69. I can't remember. And then that's shortly thereafter, I decided to get out of the business. And I worked for a while for DirecTV in the I worked for A&M Records in the international department, and I really liked that. That was a lot of fun. And then I worked for DirecTV for a while, and then in the about 77, I became a mortgage broker. And so I opened up my own company and I did mortgages, and my target group were the Hispanic people. And so
because you knew Spanish.
yes, and it was really funny because when I put an ad in the local paper, Spanish paper, and I put it in Spanish, I didn't get that many calls. When I put it in English, my phone rang off the hook. And what they told me is they didn't trust their own people.
Oh.
To be honest with them, but they trusted me. Once they got to know me. So I did a lot of more. I did mostly refinances. I didn't do new purchases because I wasn't real crazy about working with real estate agents because it's very involved. So I did a lot of refinances. And so I did that from 77 until I left California in 94. Then I came to Virginia. I spent a year in Oklahoma. Then in 95, I came to Virginia and started working for a mortgage company. And then in 2001, the owner of the mortgage company was phasing that out, and he became a builder, or he had been a builder before. He became a builder, and he wanted me to do sales. So I've been doing that since 2001. And what we do, he does all the hard work, all the outside stuff. I meet with customers. I draw up the plans. I design and, do all that fun kind of stuff. Yeah. And so that's what I've been doing as far as my real world. That's what my real world is.
Yeah, that's really interesting because there have been several, we'll say G-Fest guests that went it's similar to you, because you mentioned a little bit about being rediscovered, and now you're hitting the convention scene, 2016, 2015, and you're finding out just how much people have loved your work and things like that, and it's funny finding out that a lot of these people just ended up just living very normal lives. There was the couple years ago, his name unfortunately is escaping me, but he was a child actor who was in a Kurosawa film in 1970, and then he was in two Godzilla films. He was in Godzilla versus Hedorah, and famously in Godzilla versus Megalon, where he got to hang out with Jet Jaguar, the big smiley robot. And he said, I didn't like acting when I was a kid because I wanted to be at school with my friends, and I didn't like it. And so he did those couple of movies. He was in a couple episodes of TV. I think he was on an Ultraman show. And then after that, he was like, I'm done. And then just went back to being a normal kid. And now he's an airline pilot.
Oh, well, it's really funny because there's been times, when it's kind of quiet and whoever you're sitting next to, or you get up, walk around, see what's going on. The stories people will say, it's hard to believe that anybody would want me here after all these years. And we'd go, yeah, isn't it really weird? We're just doing our normal lives, and all of a sudden we get a phone call and now this happens. So yeah, it's kind of surreal, And I call it my real life and my fantasy life. So when I go to conventions and intermingle with the fans and the other guests and artists and all that, that's my fantasy life. And so I like that because the first third of my life was like a fairy tale. Then the middle third was like, okay, I'm an adult. I have to grow up, be responsible. And then the last third of my life is, I get the fairy tale again and the adult life. So it's been like come full circle. And
So what's happened with you? You talked about the job. What else has happened since Japan? I know you've mentioned some other things when you've done some other interviews.
Okay. Well, I was married.
Big life events. Yeah, you got married.
I've been married twice. First time, he was a wonderful guy. And we lasted about 3 years, and we got a divorce, and it was very amicable. And he invited me to his wedding when he remarried, and I didn't go out of respect to his future wife.
Okay.
I didn't go, but that was it was very sweet. We said, okay, this is yours, this is mine. Shook hands, gave each other a hug, and blessed each other, and we went our ways. the other one I was married to, he was Hungarian.
Oh.
And that was a very nasty divorce. And I won't go into a lot of details.
Yeah, we don't need
we don't need those details. It was a nasty divorce, and that is why I left California.
Oh, okay.
Because he just would not leave me alone. He wasn't stalking me. He was suing me every 5 minutes for something. And we go to court, and the judge would say, "This is ridiculous, throw it out." And so I have to spend like $5,000 just to get myself an attorney and go to court, have it thrown out. And he did this like 4 or 5 times. And my attorney said, "Get out of Dodge where he can't find you, because he's not going to stop, because he's just," I won't say the word, but that's what he is. So that's why I left California.
Yeah. Are you married now?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Do you have any children?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I'm happy.
Oh, yeah. I understand.
I have a lot of friends. I have a fellow that is like a boyfriend, but he lives in another state. And so that's kind of good, because my mom is 96 and I have to take care of her. So, I have priorities that I have to.
Oh, yeah. Which
are not a problem for me, but having a husband and all this would be difficult.
Yeah. So your mom is still around. If I may ask, you don't have to answer this. When did you lose your dad?
I lost my dad in 95. He was 75 years old and in perfect health, except he had emphysema because he smoked from when he was about 4 years old, or so he said. And it was, when you've got emphysema, it causes heart problems. And so that's what he died of. That was the only thing wrong with him. And I adored my dad. Oh my God. I was such a daddy's girl.
Yeah.
He died in 95.
Okay. I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
My grandfather had emphysema as well. Yeah. He died, I think, in the early 2000s. Was not easy to watch. It was worse for his wife, my grandmother. She ended up with lung cancer. They basically both died from consequences of 50 plus years of chain smoking, if not more.
Yeah.
And it was the impetus for my dad to finally quit. He saw this like, I'm not dealing with that.
Oh yeah, that's not a fun way to die when you're on oxygen. I can remember we would go to he lived near Fort Wayne. He lived in Ohio, in Wauseon, near Toledo, Ohio. And we would go to like Walmart, and he'd say, "Okay, do I have my oxygen with me?" And you could see him when he would be down to a certain amount of oxygen, start to panic, So he never could go very many places. And my dad was very active. So it was hard to see that. And he said to me one time, right towards the end, he says, "I would commit suicide because this is no way to die." He says, "But I can't because of Jesus." And that's the first time I knew that my father had that feeling,
Yeah.
And so, he went, and it was, he was married to another woman. My parents divorced right after Japan, and he remarried, and they were married for like 25 years. So, it was hard. I used to, every Sunday I would talk to him. And so after that, I would, by reflex, pick up the phone to call him and go, "Oh, he's not there anymore." So,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's life. We're all going to go there one day.
Yeah. But that was actually the most eye-opening thing that I learned when I listened to Kim's interview with her, with you. I did not know that you were a Christian, and that fascinated me. And I suppose it would be possible to just spend maybe an entire interview talking about this, but I just I have to know, what was your faith journey? I'm curious, because I'm a believer as well.
It was a long journey. I was very hard-headed. When I got back from Japan, I got involved in Buddhism because it was like that part of Japan that I was missing. So I was involved in Buddhism until a good 12 years. And then in the mid 80s, a series of events happened, a series of realizations happened. And somebody gave me a Bible and they said, read chapter, John, the book of John. And so I read everything but, being stubborn. And I used to have people that come up and witness to me, and it made me really angry. It just brought out this anger. And I had just come home one afternoon and had been what I called accosted by a Christian fanatic. And she just was witnessing to me. And I went outside and I looked up in the sky and I said, all right, God, if you're really real, you need to show me, because I'm sick of your people harassing me. That's about as sincere as I was. It was like giving him an ultimatum. Either, So then that night I picked up the Bible, who knows why, and I started reading John. And then John chapter 1 says, in the beginning was the Word. And I read those sentences, and all of a sudden it was like, I felt like a fireball went through me, and lights went on. And at that moment, I don't know why, but at that moment I believed, and it was like one of those, the background disappears, the lights come on. It was one of those kind of aha moments. I went to sleep that night and I had a dream that someone broke into my house and was murdering me with a knife.
Oh no.
And it would, because I would rather, I tell everybody, if you're going to murder me, please shoot me. Don't cut me up. I take those words right back out of my mouth. So I had, and it was so realistic. The dream felt so real. I woke up in a panic and turned on all the lights in the house. And at that moment, I realized, because in Buddhism, you're taught there's evil and there's good and they're real. It's not, hocus pocus. It's real. So I had that realization, or that understanding of there's the world we see and then there's the other worlds. So at that moment I went, I understand what just happened to me. There's a fight for my soul going on. And then I calmed down. I said, well, you're not getting it, devil. So that was the mid 80s. I never went to church. I never did anything until the mid 90s. And then we went to Oklahoma, and that's the first time I ever went to church. And I went there for a year, got some foundational stuff about what I believe and why, and then came to Virginia and went 10 years without going to church. I always believed that God was real and Jesus was his son and, all that. But I never went to church. And I remember one day, if I'm talking too much, let me know. Okay.
No. Keep going.
So one day I'm driving down Anderson Highway, the big highway in our town. And I thought, what would happen to me, just out of the blue, this thought, what would happen to me if I were in a car wreck right now and died? Where would I go? And I went, holy shit. It put a little fear in me. I thought, I need to get back into church. I need to find out what it is I believe. So I got involved in a church, and I remember sitting in my bathroom and saying, okay, God, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it all the way. I'm going to jump feet first into the deep end. And I want to have a faith like the disciples have. I didn't know what I was saying. So I want to have faith like this. So that began my journey. And I don't going to church doesn't say you're going to go to heaven. Going to church is just a place where you need to learn and understand and receive and change. Somebody said to me once that the biggest hospital in the world is the church. So I got involved as much as I could. I went to prayer. I did everything, which I still do, and that's why I got the phone call saying, we've been looking for you, Linda, is because of that. Because it's kind of supernatural that happened. Number one, how many Linda Millers in this world are there? How could you find me? Just so happened, Brett is in Japan, who just so happens to be friends with my first love, Natsuki Yosuke, who just so happens to mention to him that I'm looking for Linda Miller, and he just so happens to know my middle name. And that's how it all came unfolded. So I fully understand that this is a big gift that God has given me. And I try to treat it with respect and appreciation and kind of awe, you know. And so all these doors have opened up for me. I don't want to be a movie star. I don't want to go to Hollywood and be the next whoever. But this that I'm experiencing brings me such joy and such pleasure, you know. And I have to say one more thing. When he told me he knew Natsuki, I said, oh, I thought to myself, I didn't even verbalize it, if I could just see him one more time before I die. That was like so deep in my heart that I couldn't even express it. And that's what happened when I went to Japan in 2016. He and I had some time together to talk about our experience together and reminisce and all that, because I had held him in such high esteem that no man in my life would ever be able to, you know, match up to him. And so that was God's way of, number one, granting a wish that I never expressed. Only he knew that's what I wanted. And number two, releasing me and freeing me from that kind of obsessive love that I had for him, so that that my heart could, you know, I think there's a song, my heart can, you know, sing again or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was like so incredible, you know. I mean, yeah, it was incredible going to Japan and doing all the con things. So incredible, all the things, you know, that were so much more meaningful than that. And so I've seen throughout my life, since I've decided to do it, decide to be real and be a Christian. And so now when I'm at conventions, I pray and I say, all right, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be one of those Christians that are in your face. But if there's an opportunity to witness to somebody or even say something of encouragement to somebody, give me the opportunity and give me the brains to know that the opportunity is in front of me. So when Kimberly, not Kimberly, Kaiju Kim, I have a friend named Kimberly. When Kim and I were, I felt so comfortable with her, I was able just a teeny little bit to open up about my faith. And that was the first time I ever publicly said anything.
Oh,
it's
really?
Scary. It's scary because you don't want people to go, oh God, you know, and you lose fans. It's the human part that you always want people to love you. And so, it just kind of flowed out of me. It was very natural. I felt so comfortable with her. And after I did it, I looked at her and said, was that okay? And she goes, oh yeah. You know, she's very encouraging. So it was just a teeny little thing.
Well, she's a believer too.
I figured that when she said, oh, like we're going to church, hallelujah, praise the Lord. I went, oh yeah, she's one of us, you know. And I just want to be an encouragement, because God is real and he's not he's not a fad. He's not Santa Claus. You know, I suffer. I cry. I, you know, feel pain. But I'm never alone. I know that he is always with me through it, gets me through it and to the other side. And I don't know how people can get through life not having that anchor, you know, because I did for a long time. It took me a long time to come around. You know, I was in my 30s when I first, it
was like mid 80s. Is that when you counted?
Mid 80s. So I was in my 30s.
You're in mid 30s.
And then it wasn't until my mid 90s. And then you
mean wait. You mean the mid 90s? Not you're not that old.
I'm
you're not as old as your mom. Okay,
yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm working on it, but I'm not there yet. So it took me a long, long time to get serious And even when I went for that 10-year period where I didn't go to church or anything, I still believed. It just was a passive belief, you know. And so instead of an active, and now I'm in the active phase. So anyway, that's, yeah. Oh, here comes my mom.
Oh, don't let me. Sorry.
Hi. We're still talking.
We'll wrap up here in a few minutes. We'll wrap up here in a few minutes. I promise.
Okay. Just a few more minutes. Just a few more minutes. Okay, Mom.
I was going to say, I don't want to keep you from.
No, she just wants to make sure I'm alive. She doesn't.
Oh, okay.
She'll call me at work. Are you okay? Yes,
yeah,
Mom, I'm okay.
You said she's how old? 96? 96, and she can't stop being your mom, can she?
No, I'm always going to be her little girl, no matter what.
Yeah. I know the feeling, because my parents are not as old as you, but they're senior citizens, technically retirement age, and they can't stop being my parents either. I'm like, I'm a grown man. Why are you doing this? Like, I'm always going to be your mom. I'm always going to be your dad. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Well, wait till you get to the point where the roles change and you become the parent. Yeah. That's where I'm at now. She still is, acts that way, but now I'm the parent. So
yeah.
Mom, you can't do that. Why can't I? Well, because of law. Well, okay, if you say so.
Yeah, that's
her only issue is she can't hear worth a darn. So when I talk to her, I have to yell.
I know. Yeah, I noticed that.
You caught that, right?
Yeah, I caught that a little bit. So yeah. So I know the feeling. The feeling. So that is. I'm going to tell you right now. Hearing that, it actually made me love you more. It made me respect you more when I heard that from Kim, and now actually getting to hear your story. I mean, like, we could probably spend an entire conversation just unpacking that a little bit, but I wanted to hear more about that, because it's like I said when we started this, there's so much life before and so much life after.
Yeah,
that incredible moment where you were in Japan and you were, you were working as a model and an actress, and you're doing all of these, these fairy tale things,
exactly.
But there's so much more life in between. And I wanted to hear more about that, because, you should be known. I think personally, you should be known for more than just the 2.5 movies, the 1.5 movies, that you got to be. Yeah.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. And I was going to say something and I forgot what it was.
Oh, it's all right. But this has been wonderful. And
I've enjoyed it too.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure being able to sit down and talk with you about all of this. You're very easy to talk to. And when I say you're like the kaiju fandom's new grandma, I really mean that. I think there's a lot that we can learn from you, and I do think, and trust me, this is, someone, of my generation. I'm a millennial, and you start to realize that a lot of the like these actors, creators, or whatever that you admire, that you grew up seeing, it just feels like we lose more of them every year.
Yeah.
So you really need to take, if you really want to, even if it's just to tell them how much you appreciate what they did.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to do, because you never know when you're going to get that opportunity again, and, to bring it back to what we were talking about, Takarada. We all had this crazy idea in our head. Takarada, he's immortal. He's going to be around forever, all that. And then suddenly,
boom. Yeah.
Boom. He wasn't. And, it was a shock. I mean, like, I have a collage on my wall where I put a bunch of framed pictures of the celebrities. I need to update it, but of the celebrities that I've met at conventions. And I look at it now and I'm like,
wow,
there are several of them who are no longer with us.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's just, some of them were very sudden, just like, what, it's just one of those things. You can't take this for granted. I remember I intentionally went to a convention to meet somebody who was very old. It was Stan Lee, the comic book creator.
Oh, yeah.
And he was well into his 90s. He was pushing 100. And I knew he was going to be retiring from convention appearances, but I'm like, I have to meet him.
Yeah.
I have to meet him. This might be my last chance to meet him, not just because of that he's retiring from cons, but he's pushing 100. There's no guarantee he's going to be around much longer. So I went and I did, and it was and it was wonderful. And I think a month into when I started grad school in 2018, my sister sends me a text message saying he died, and I was like, oh my gosh, what? I didn't know what to do with myself, because I'm like, Stan Lee has just always been around. It's just, now my life has to go on without Stan Lee. What do I do? So all of that to say, being able to sit down and have this conversation with you has been enlightening. It has been encouraging. It has been wonderful, because, and it's been recorded, so now other people can come back and they can reference it. I hope you will be with us for many years to come. I would love to see you at more conventions and things like that. But I just want everybody watching and listening right now, take the opportunities while you have them, because you never know when you won't.
Well, let me give you the opposite story. There was, and I'm so bad with names. I can see his picture, Japanese actor, really macho. He was in a convention in Raleigh, and I'd always wanted to meet him because I'd heard about him. And Raleigh's only a 2-hour drive from here. And I was going to go, and then I thought, oh, I don't want to drive. Made all these excuses. And he died shortly thereafter. I went, oh, if only I had just gotten off my butt and driven and met him, So
that happened with me in Nakajima.
Oh.
He was at a convention that was just 2 hours away from me, but it was a horror convention. So I'm like, I'd only be going for him, and it's a lot of money and everything to just go meet one person. So like, oh, he's going to be at a Comic-Con now, in a couple of months, in up in Michigan. So I was like, oh, I'll just wait until then. And he just had to go and die in between those conventions. I was like, why? Why did you do that, Nakajima? Why? I should have gone when I had the chance. So that's one of my great regrets, as a fan.
Yeah,
I missed that opportunity.
Yeah, I hear you. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to end on a sad note here. You got some love here in the chat. I want to make sure I share this with you. Zeke Goji 45 says, Linda, remember me? I was the kid at Kaiju Brooklyn.
Oh my goodness. Oh, if that's the kid he was so full of energy. Asking if he was the one that was playing the game right next to me, and the Ultraman game.
Oh, the card game?
Card game, yeah. Yeah, he was. Look at him. That must be him, because he was full of a lot of energy. And look at
how old was he?
12, 14, somewhere.
Oh, okay.
He has his own podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never seen that name before. So, Zeke Goji 45. Okay. Well, that's been sitting there for a while. I was like, I got to make sure she sees that. Yeah. She got some love in the chat.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
okay.
Like I said, thank you very much. This will be here on YouTube, for posterity, and I will be putting the audio out for it on the podcast feed relatively soon. So, so for anybody who missed it, you can watch the VOD, or you can listen to it on the podcast feed. And hopefully I'll get to talk to your friend Carl in a couple of months. I'm hoping I will have, just so everybody knows, I will have another interview next week. I will be interviewing Sean Pryor, the author of, where is that book? A book, called Kaiju Unleashed.
Woohoo!
So I'll be talking to him about that. He's got your boy on the back.
Oh yeah. Oh, he looks like he's in a bad mood.
Yeah. It's the MonsterVerse version. Actually, let me see, because he does have an entry for King Kong Escapes. I'm just gonna go thumb through this and find it. Let me see. See if he has a picture of you too. No, he does not have a picture of you, but there is an entry for King Kong Escapes in here.
Yay. Good.
You know.
Who would have thought, what is it, almost 60 years ago? Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Almost 60.
Yep. All right. Well, like I said, it's been a pleasure.
Same here.
I'm going to end the stream and then the credits will play. And, if you want to chat for a few minutes afterward, we can do that. All right. Thank you very much. See you, everybody.
Okay.
Oh, wait, we got one more right here. One more comment. Thank you. And to quote Nate's impression of Doctor Who, dig, Jimmy, dig. Yeah, that's I have a quote unquote on-air producer on my show named Jimmy. He sounds like a robot on the show. That's what he's referencing there. So sometimes I do that line on there. All right. Thanks a lot. Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. Our executive producer is Damon Noyes. If you want to be heard on the show, we'd love to hear from you, so email us at monsterislandfilmvault@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. You can also follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter and our many colorful characters using the links in the show notes, which are on our website, monsterislandfilmvault.com. Don't forget to join our official Facebook group and Discord server, The Markalite Lounge. Our podcast logo was designed by Rebecca Hudgens. Follow her on Twitter and Instagram at super_R_illustrations. Sound effects sourced from freesound.org and created by JP Gant. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrono, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack and The Opened Way by Kawatani from Shadow of the Colossus. Additional music includes Every Country Has a Monster, performed by Jonah Ray, and Chant My Name, a cover by Second Archive of the song by Masaki Endo. All film and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and/or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can even support us by joining MIFV MAX on Patreon. MIFV is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production and a proud member of Pod Nation. Sayonara!